Hello everybody and welcome to my highlights video of the DGSR League Round 4 from Bathurst, Australia, otherwise known as Mount Panorama within Assetto Corsa Competizione. And you have joined me in qualifying as I have just completed a lap of 2:04.845, which actually would have put me just on the cusp of the top third of the grid, which, considering this is the third out of 4 circuits that we've done so far that I have no knowledge of prior to doing this league, I'm actually pretty pleased with that. And the idea that on such a tight, bumpy, unforgiving circuit I was able to quite quickly find some pace and a little bit of consistency was very pleasing, and actually gave me a fair bit of confidence for the rest of this session and going into the race. You can see as we're winding up the mountain of Mount Panorama, the stupid expression on my face in the dash cam really just emphasising my point that you have to be completely locked in and focused on every inch of that tarmac. This really is a track that it will basically bend you over and violate you in the most hideous way if you disrespect it for just the blink of an eye. This part in particular, as you're throwing it down pretty high speed into these snaking bends with dips and dives, the walls, they will not allow you even the slightest bit of contact. At the very best case, you will invalidate the lap. In the worst case, you seem to get a disproportionate amount of damage. For even a graze on the wing mirror, it can really upset the balance and the performance of your car. So obviously with the downhill windy section done, we're now into the flatter, smoother, more traditional circuit-like part of this course, and albeit still a little bit sphincter clenching, particularly over that crest and into this fast left-hander, it's a lot more manageable as long as you can control your brakes. And speaking of brakes, this was also my first race on my nice new Fanatec V3 pedals, which I will go into more detail in a moment. As we come around the final left-hander, avoiding that inside curve so you don't get spat out wide, and boom, another half second off my lap time, which put me in 9th. That sadly turned out to be 11th once everyone else had finished their lap times, but still pretty good starting position for the race. So here is the race, and annoyingly my record didn't pick up the first bend, but everyone was very well behaved. Nothing actually happened other than Mr. S. Wally behind me, or now to the side of me and now ahead of me, got an incredible drive out at turn 1 and threw it down into T2. There was no point in me fighting that whatsoever. Even if I was close enough to challenge, why would you risk anything on the second turn of a 50-minute race? And in actual fact, as you will see very shortly, that might actually have been a blessing that I fell a little bit further down the field. Given the close proximity of all the cars in single file on this winding, bumpy climb, the likelihood of an incident is high, and the likelihood of getting caught up in someone else's incident if you're sitting close behind them is even higher. As you will see in about 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. There we go. Mercedes hits the wall. Mr. Wally, who had overtaken me, hits the Mercedes. He was having his own incident anyway, but I think had he not gone into the back of that Mercedes, he might have got away with it with a drivable car, at least for a while. It would have hindered his performance. But had that been me being the first car on the scene of that Mercedes crash, I basically would have had a very time-consuming return to pit scenario. Anyway, things settle down a little bit now, with Wilkins at 1.8 seconds ahead of me, LKMP 1.4 behind, and we're just bringing the tyres in, getting the car settled down, finding our rhythm, everyone being very courteous and respectful of each other, and the race sort of settled into a nice, consistent pattern for some laps now, until I wonder if you can guess what's coming. So here we are on the climb towards the end of lap 4. Quinn, Wilkins and Raiola have formed a great little group and are stretching away ahead of me, but I'm still in the top 10. Wally is only 0.8 seconds behind me, but a lap down, and Dee and McKelligot are my main real threats from behind. Everything's going really nicely, car felt completely under control, nice and smooth, tyres are up to temperature, lap times are getting more respectable, and then, whoa, what was it? Whoa! No idea what happened there, just a little bump, flipped the back out, And as I mentioned earlier, disproportionate damage. It wasn't a huge hit, but I had something like 18 seconds worth of damage from that little tap on the wall. Luckily, I only lost one position to D, and truth be told, he was catching and looking pretty fast and feisty anyway. So it was only a matter of time that I was going to be in some kind of scrap. So that maybe did us both a favour and made the overtake easy. Wally now ahead, D chasing him, and McGilligan now just 2.6 seconds behind. I took it pretty easy for the next half lap or so, really just try and get a feel for the new balance of the damaged car, and just make sure that a pit stop wasn't necessary at this early stage. So fast forward to lap 9, and as the sun sets, I've managed to chase down Wally, who gets a little bit of a twitch and runs wide at turn 1. I run wide also, not quite as wide, so I managed to keep a bit more traction, which gives me lovely momentum to get up into the toe and dive out to the left side of Wally. But Wally is a lap down, remember, but we've been very similarly paced all the way through. Luckily, he thought better of challenging me into turn 2 and gave me plenty of space just to sweep in and maintain my speed going into the mountain climb, and hopefully now get my head down and give chase to Mr. D in 9th place, who at this point is 8.9 seconds ahead with 2 GT4 cars between the two of us. So as we come over the crest of the mountain, you'll see the GT4 Aston Martin just ahead of me has a little bit of a moment there, gets sideways and takes all of his speed out going into the S's coming down. And what's coming up next, I believe to be a defining moment of my race. And it was a decision I made which kind of then forced other decisions. There's a gap there, and I hesitate, I wait, because I wasn't convinced that Aston Martin had seen me. So I slow down, make sure he's well wide and the road is straight, and then drive through. The reason that was so important is it allowed Wally and McGilligan to get right on my tail. I'd managed to gap them a little bit up the mountain, but they're now just 0.3 seconds behind, and that led to me overdriving, basically. As you'll see there, I run deep into the first left-hander, luckily saved by my new Wonder Fanatec pedals, which I'm so chuffed with. But yeah, basically, I start just pushing the car further and harder than I had up to this point in the race. Catching up with another GT4. The GT4s, by the way, I must congratulate them. They have the harder job of the two categories. Constantly under pressure from the faster cars behind, having to look backwards as much as forwards. And they did it, for me anyway, absolutely impeccably. I had no issues with GT4 cars at all. They managed to maintain pace and maintain their own races whilst knowing that the car I'm in, nothing to do with ability or right on the track, but the car I'm in is 10-12 seconds a lap faster, and managed to just make sure they weren't just constant roadblocks. They were absolutely fantastic. So well done to those guys. Anyway, as you'll see, McGilligan now is 0.8 seconds behind as we climb back up again, and still I'm pushing the car harder than I really wanted to be at this stage in the race, or certainly harder than I should have been. There's nowhere to overtake up here. I should have just tried to settle back into the rhythm I've been comfortable with for the first 23, 22 minutes of this race, which, by the way, regardless of however the race turned out from this point, was still the best race I've had in the league so far. I was so happy with the consistency and the pace, and it would be nice to think that I can carry that form on to future races in the season.
I was half a second behind the guy in front.
So McGilligan had a little bit of a hiccup, dropped a little bit further back, but immediately back on the power and starts closing in again through the lower parts of the hill. As I am now coming up to Engel, another GT4 driver who's going to give you a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. He doesn't have to slow down. I don't think I put any kind of lunge on him. I think it just works itself out, and he knew exactly where to position the car, knowing the speed differential. So we go into this bend. I'm braking slightly harder than I normally would there, but to be honest, not an awful lot of speed lost by me at all. And then just use the drive coming out He stays nice and wide. Boom, job done. No harm to either of us. And now here it is. This is the moment I will forever kick myself about. And it's not even that. I was over driving, which sent me wide. No, it was this.
Sorry, Engel.
I mean, what the hell is that? I'm just trying to get back on safely. I get a bit of wheel spin on the grass, which basically flicks me across the track. I mean, that's stupid. I braked far too late, but no damage. If I just keep the car straight, get back on, that's only 1-2 positions lost. No, spin, bang. And coming back to what I was saying, disproportionate damage. Maybe, maybe not in this case. That was quite a direct hit with the wall. But you'll see in a second the view I have now got with the sun gone, light fading, and all I've got is sort of street and headlights glaring off a cracked, dirty windscreen. My headlights themselves flash every time I apply the brakes, so blinding me even further every time we come into a bend, which is not ideal, as you'll see there and flickering on the climb. And the car was basically undrivable, meaning the inevitable return to the pits. So after having sat in the pits for 1 minute and 5 seconds to get the essential repairs, at least the windscreen was nice and clear. I managed to adjust the tyre pressures so that they compensated for the drop in temperature as night fell, and back out on the track we go. Currently only down in 12th position, so still only 1 place lost. And then a little scare as we come out of the pits with a slow car sitting in the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure what that was about, but I think he was waiting to let the cars on track go past, and I didn't have any such thoughts in my mind. I just put pedal to the metal and away we go. So still in 12th position, still potential for a top 10 finish, and we head into the night, back up the mountain again.
I'm staying left. Good man, I was just going to say pass you on the right.
Okay, as we head into the final 20 minutes of the race, and thanks to a driver having to pit ahead of me for damage, I've regained that 11th spot, and the potential top 10 is still on. The car's repaired, I'm feeling good, I've been pretty quick, and all things are going quite nicely. In the meantime, our good friend Mr. Jamie Swan in the GT4 category has been doing a stunning job climbing his way up through the field and putting himself actually ahead of quite a lot of the GT3 cars. So all is looking good until, oh, whoa. Again, I have no idea how that happened. Lack of concentration, hit a bump, I don't know what. The worst thing about that was I was stuck across blocking the track, so the right thing to do was press escape and return to the pits, which incurs about a 2-minute 40-second wait before your car gets worked on and released back into the race. So let's see if we can have another look at exactly what happened there.
I've just nearly had a heart attack.
So we crest the mountain, all looks okay, car seems fine, and then as we sweep into the left, the back just comes round and I'm still turning left as the road goes back round very sharply to the right, and I am stranded in the middle. And as you'll see, a car is just about to arrive and boom, I escape. Barely getting away without ruining his race as well as mine.
Sorry dude, I came out with fresh tyres.
It's alright.
I was getting a bit Billy Big Balls, it all felt so nice.
Oh, my heart.
So after what felt like an absolute eternity in the pits, I re-emerge down in 21st position with extremely cold and flat tyres, where I stupidly didn't change them this time in the pit stop. I may as well have done. I was in there for about 4 or 5 minutes. Another 30 seconds wouldn't have made much difference. But to be honest, my race kind of spirals out of control from this point. My first warning comes just at the top of this climb. I don't know whether it was me forgetting where the bumps were and maybe getting tired. I'd like to blame the tyre pressures, but they do improve and my driving doesn't. But you'll see now as I sweep into this fast left-hander, I get a big kick of oversteer there, which I had to quickly correct and got away with that time. But that definitely should have been my warning that it transpires I needed to take a much tighter inside line to avoid a bump at the top of that climb, which keeps the car much more settled as we go down into these S's. So we'll roll on to the next lap, and you'll see the same problem occurring again and again and again. In actual fact, I do get away with it again on the following lap, but that was really because I was forced to take a slower, more considered approach to that same bend because I was catching to unlap myself BUs in the Nissan GTR ahead, and as you see, he had a big moment there, hitting exactly the bump that I did on the previous lap, but that actually instinctively made me go tighter on the inside. So again, that was another warning that that's exactly what I should be doing to maintain balance over the top of that climb and then obviously carry speed all the way down. I do a similar thing here while I try and overtake Use as I did earlier on. Again, there's a gap there. I hesitated in sending it once again, just not entirely convinced that the car's not going to sweep across to the left. And that puts E. Wilkins, who is actually looking to lap me again, just 0.1 second behind me. He's in 6th position, chasing down Barros in 5th, who was 4.3 seconds ahead. So at this point I was in two minds as to whether to pull over and let him go on the chase. But as we see, we'll get through this next bend. I sweep through it quite nicely, and actually, I don't know if he made a mistake, but I stretched out over half a second just through that corner. So I figured, right, I've got the pace. Unless he gets right on my arse again, I'm just going to carry on and continue with my race. And now maybe we should fast forward to the top of the climb on this lap, because I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones I don't get away with. Okay, I was wrong. I do get away with it again on this lap. Again, because my pace is being determined for me by a couple of GT4 cars ahead of me. So I roll around that very gently, very smoothly. I do get held up a little bit here, and it's allowed Wilkins to pull right back on me again because there's just nowhere to overtake. And I don't know if Wilkins will ever watch this video, but I'll apologise to him now. In hindsight, he's chasing a position I'm not, and he might have been more aggressive and done a better job of getting past these GT4s earlier in the climb had I just moved over and let him go. But I figured we just got to wait to get down the other side. We can move out the way and just go on our merry way anyway. I run a little bit wide there, just again not convinced by the space that's available. I've got past both the GT4s, and Wilkins now is virtually touching me. I think the same happens again. In clear air, I just seem to have a little bit more pace. Barros is now nearly 12 seconds ahead anyway, so Wilkins was clearly dropping back from Barros. And once again, through that bend, despite the fact I run a little bit wide, I think Wilkins must have made a mistake there because he lost 1.5 seconds just through that corner. And away we go again. Maybe this is the one where I don't get away with the bump at the top of the climb. Okay, we're actually 2 laps later because the last lap turned out to be my fastest lap of the race, and I actually took that bump at the top of the mountain better than at any other point during the entire race, which proves it must just be short-term memory loss with me, because you'd think I'd have remembered exactly what I did and just do it again. But no, we're now approaching it left to my own devices, no other cars to dictate my line or slow me down, and for whatever reason I stay very wide here and turn in late and from a wider angle, which spins the back out, boom, catches it, around we go, smack, into the wall, damage. Not serious damage, not worth going into the pits for, certainly not with 6 minutes left, and as I'm well out of the way of all the other cars, there was no need to do a return to pit. Just be very careful in the mirrors and on the map radar. Make sure you let everybody go. There's one more car coming, so I ease off. No point in getting a damaged car stuck in front of him. And then boom, away we go. Hope that the car's driving straight, and on we go for another lap. Surely it can't happen again next time. So a bit of damage to the car now. Nothing really affected the performance, just the flickering lights when I brake. I'm still ahead of Jay Hale, who's in 23rd, and I've been managing to hold pace on this lap, so I was reasonably pleased by that until, boom, there we go. Exactly the same thing. I took the same line in, came out wide, squared off the bend, caught that bump, back comes round, off we go. Another little love tap on the front of the car, just for good measure. And frustratingly, there goes Mr. Hale. I know we're fighting over 22nd and 23rd position, but it still matters. So, banged up car, even more banged up ego, and to be honest, we're now 3 minutes into the before the end of the race. All I actually wanted to do was make sure the car would turn, get it over the line, put this one to bed, and hope that the multiple warnings and incidents I had on that same bend was enough for me to take it. Oh, look, there we go, understeer wide into that wall. Yeah, hope that I can actually take that knowledge and remember to take a smoother inside line and avoid that bump at the top. So otherwise, I'm just going to crash there every lap of every race. I was fine for the first 30 minutes of this race. I'm not quite sure where the brain fart happened, and I just seemed to forget that's what I needed to do. But anyway, poor visibility, poor handling, terrible lighting, getting tired, near the end of the race, starting to feel a little bit grumpy. On the other side of Team WKG, Mr. Jamie Swan was absolutely flying, and I believe he got himself up into 13th overall. That's not just 13th in category, I think he was actually second in category, we'll check in a moment. I think he was 13th out of the 30 odd drivers of both categories, which is just incredible. And it goes to show, he's a quick driver, a quick, steady, consistent, clean driver, and that is exactly what you need on a course like this. Stay out of trouble, let everybody else have their own incidents, concentrate on your own race, concentrate on just consistency and balance and comfort throughout the 50 minutes. Mine unravelled when I started pushing, that caused the first incident, and then, as has happened in previous races, once I've had one crash, I tend to overreact and get worse and worse as the event goes on. So, fingers crossed, I will take this knowledge into Silverstone, which is our next round, although I've just heard it's going to be raining and dark, so this is a whole new ballgame for me. I do know Silverstone, luckily, but not in the rain and the dark with a Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. So, interesting times ahead. Anyway, let's jump forward to the end of the race. You don't need to see this very boring final last lap or two. So we round the final corner, fireworks go off, race done, and I've still got the same stupid expression I had right at the start of the race. Congratulations to our winners. My safety rating actually went up from 73 to 75, which is impressive considering the crashes. Anyway, the podium was Gabe, Long and Wilder, so well done you guys. And even more well done, Jamie Swan, second in class and 13th overall, which is absolutely stunning. So congratulations, dude. Before I round up, I will just say a quick word about my Fanatec V3 pedals. I will actually just do a separate video about those, describing the transition, how they feel as an improvement or indeed a negative compared to my Logitech pedals, the experience of buying them from Digital Motorsport, which is a stark contrast to my other major purchase, which is a GT Omega Prime rig, and my experiences of buying that directly from GT Omega. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you so much to DGSR for putting on the league, as always. Well done, everybody. Sorry for anyone's race I might have interfered with. I did my best to stay out of the way, if I'm honest. But despite the disappointment of the result, still thoroughly enjoyable, and as I mentioned earlier, all very good experience. So we move on to a wet, miserable Silverstone, and I hope to see you there next week. Cheers.
I don't know. Most of the GT4s were pretty good, but there was one or two who basically